what is the underlying structure which is allowing us this kind of a hierarchical representation? The underlying structure is known as neural network. What is a neural network? Neural network is basically a hierarchical structure with several layers, each layer connected to the next layer, and the starting layer is the input layer and the output layer is the last layer. And each cell represents something which is equivalent to some structure in a brain called as a neuron. So these are also called neurons. So a neural network is basically a multi-input, multi-output system, because you can get many different inputs. On each input you can get multiple possible outputs. But the way it works is input and output form the first and the last layers, but there can be one or more hidden layers. When neural network started its journey, we were starting to work with a single layer network. Then slowly it moved on to more complex networks. Today we talk about multiple layers of the network, which gives it that generality of abstraction from any kind of input data, and therefore makes it applicable for wider categories of input data like images, etc. Now, why is it called deep? Because till couple of decades back, till 2006, neural networks, though were invented in 50s, till 2006, they were limited in use with maximum 2 or 3 or 4 hidden layers. A lot of people have done work with neural networks even in 80s, 90s, 2000s. But as we progressed in 2006, there was a mega invention in the history of neural networks, which suddenly caused possibility of working with large number of layers in the middle. And suddenly it calls itself, instead of a neural network, it started calling us deep neural network, DNN. Then deep neural network means lot of hidden layers. Once we started talking about it and started giving results, they said machine learning, as we know from the conventional structure, is better done using DNN as compared to conventional methods like linear regression or logistic regression. Then they said, let us call this field as deep learning, which is basically making use of many deep layers in the neural network, which is able to abstract patterns in any input and thereupon able to generate some kind of a hierarchy of representations representing the truth inside these images or inside this text. So basic building block is a neural network. What is the basic cell in a neural network? It's something called as a neuron. It is very similar to a biological neuron. What is biological neuron? It is basically a structure where there is some centralized information processing inside the brain, and they are connected to other neurons via connectors. So let's not go deep into the structure of each, but let us again not also overdo the fact that what we are talking about in neural network is an exact replica of what is there in the human brain. It is in principle similar, but not necessarily exactly the same. So it's a very, very gross oversimplification of the overall concept of how a biological neuron works and how you're simulating that in an actual node in the neural network, also known as artificial neuron, right?